But yeah, so I'm Matt Pimenta. Thanks, Karen, Nelson, and all everyone for having me back, and Nathan, of course, for having me back again. We're just going to kind of jump right into it. We don't have a lot of time here, but kind of similar to how I just showed you, where you can download that workbook and follow along. You can do that with this quick tips and tricks module as well. Let me know if anything breaks, but I guess we'll figure that out as we go through it together. Show of hands, how many people are using Viz and Tooltip or know how to use Viz and Tooltip? Awesome. Okay, cool. Kind of like a mixed bag. You will need, I think it's 10.5 or above to do Viz and Tooltip, but it can be a really handy tool if you've got limited dashboard real estate, which, to be honest, is always. So it can help when you want just another view or that kind of intuitive drill down into some data. And Viz and Tooltip is just, you mouse over a bar or something, and then you get to see things that make up. For example, here, right, you might want to mouse over chairs and see who are my top 10 customers for chairs. So we're going to walk through how you do that. At the outset, it should be pretty easy, but you'll actually see that when you start putting this together, it doesn't show you the top 10, it starts showing you something less than that, depending on what you mouse over, and we'll talk about kind of why that happens as well. So maybe just leave this up here for a second, make sure you all get the link if you want it. This is up on my Tableau public as well, and hopefully find a way to share this on like the ATUG, LinkedIn, or something cool like that. So let's jump right in here. So it's kind of set up, we're going to work, I guess, off this, we'll work off this answers doc. We're not really building a lot of calculations or anything. This one's just kind of conceptual here. Working with Superstore data, and what we're going to do is here drag subcategory onto rows, and then sales onto the column shelf. We've all built this viz before. We'll go ahead and make it descending. Let's get some mark labels on there. Of course, you can click here, show mark labels. I prefer generally to put a pill on whatever is going to go on the dashboard, just so I know where it is. If you just did this, for example, you don't really get that pill there telling you that sales is on text. So kind of a personal preference. You'll notice as well, of course, you can drag a new sales over, but something that helps me a lot in my workflow is if you hold Command on a Mac, Control on a PC, and you click a pill, what you're actually doing is you're making a copy, and you can drag this copy down to wherever you want, or you can make like 3 of these if you wanted. It can be just a good thing in the workflow. So just kind of just doing sales by subcategory here. Do some quick formatting, hide some of this stuff. Relatively clean viz. So now we're going to move to step 2. The idea here is we want to show the top 10 customers, right? This is kind of cool. It's going to look a bit like what we just saw in the last presentation. So we're going to get customer name onto the rows shelf. I pretty much always ignore that warning. So again, we're just going to kind of build this kind of standard descending bar graph. We're going to want to show the top 10 customers, though. This is a pretty common top 10, bottom 10, you name it. We're going to use a filter to do that in this case. And then in the last presentation, we used condition, but there's another option here that's top. So what you're going to select is by field, and this is top 10 by sales that all looks right. That's what we want to show top 10 based on. Kind of a cool thing, though, there might be an opportunity, right, in the future where you want to give the end user the chance to cycle between 5 or maybe 100 top 10. So a cool thing you can do is you can actually create a parameter or use a parameter and put that in here, so you can kind of sliding scale however much you do or don't want to show. I do that a lot with like kind of dates or interesting things. It can be good with dates because you can like set fake today. Anyway, it can help in some situations. But we've got our top 10 here. We can see down here we've got in the bottom left 10 marks, so I'm reasonably confident that it's showing us 10 people. So really the next step, right, is to kind of link these together, and we're going to use a viz in Tooltip to accomplish that. We're going to kind of remember a few of these names here, though. Sean, Tamara, and Raymond. We're going to go step 3. So this is just a kind of a copy of what we made in step 1. Same viz. Okay, good. There's no tooltip on it. Because we want this viz to appear in our tooltip, what you would do is you click tooltip on the marks card over here. There's some text already in here. I'm going to get rid of it. We'll go top 10 customers. 'Cause this is really what we're going to be seeing in this tooltip when we mouse over the bars. So top 10 customers is this header. And what you're going to do is you're going to go over to insert, and as of, I guess, 10.5, this sheets option will appear here. This will basically be a list of every worksheet you have. I'm not sure if it's chained to a data source or not, but every worksheet you have will be in this list. What we're going to do is we're going to pull that top 10 customer sheet. We're going to drop it in here. You'll notice what pops into the tooltip dialog is kind of looks like web or like HTML code. It looks more like that than other things to me, or maybe like CSS or something. But this is basically your viz in a code form, and we can preview it here. You can see it's actually going to pull that in, so we like that. You do have some options, right? You can increase, for example, you might be trying to pull in a viz that's just too big and it won't fit. So what's going to happen is you're going to see this weird view is too large to show. But you actually have total control over what that box's size is, so we'll go ahead and make it maybe 400 by 400, just give us a little breathing room just in case. Now we can see, it doesn't mean it will always take up 400, it's just, it has that as an upper bound if it needs it. So we're going to mouse over some of these here, but you'll notice, I'm not the best at counting, but that's not 10. That's fewer than 10, and that doesn't make any sense. We told it, I'm looking at, what is this, I'm looking at shares, and I told you to show me the top 10 customers. Why aren't you doing that? This comes down to Tableau's order of operations, which might be this like weird term you've heard before. And I never really cared about it until you start running into things like this, where you start using LODs more. This is really when that kind of comes into play. But in this case, the order of operations basically says, do this, then this, then this. You guys remember PEMDAS. It's just like in Tableau works the same way. So what it's actually trying to do is it's basically applying your subcategory filter and your top 10 of all population customers at the same time. If your data does not exist in both sets, it doesn't qualify. So what we need to tell Tableau instead is filter on subcategory first, then show me the top 10 customers based on that. So what we're going to do to that is we're going to go back to top 10 customers. We're going to go back to top 10 customers. And if you were working on your starter file, you'd notice you now have this new pill over here, this tooltip subcategory. If you work with filter actions or any kind of dashboard action, you'll notice that once you apply those filters, you'll start getting these pills over here. It's because the action is passing to a worksheet as a filter. It's kind of how these things work. In this case, it's just saying, hey, I know there's a parent viz to this. When you mouse over it, in the tooltip, I want you to filter down to whatever you mouse over. In this case, filter down to just that subcategory. So what needs to happen is we need to make sure that Tableau calculates this pill before it calculates the other one. Yeah, I actually have no idea. That's a great question. It seems to just be, I guess, all subcategories in this case. Yeah. I suppose there might be some ways that you could, block some, but I guess for the purposes of this, it makes sense kind of leaving it as is. But I wish it was as easy as just pulling it on top of the other one. It isn't, and again, it comes down to this order of operations. The color of those pills matters, right? We know that blue is a dimension, so basically those blue pills are sitting here in the pipeline. I didn't know this until I started looking at the order of operations, but it's actually to compute your measure filters after you do any of your dimension filters. But what we need to do is put something above dimension filter. If you're an LOD person, you'll notice this is why fixed LODs work the way that they do. It's because they're higher up in that order of operations. But in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to use a context filter. And it's honestly really kind of simple. All you have to do is right-click this guy and say Add to Context. And you'll notice that the pill changes colors. It goes from that blue to this gray, and that communicates to us that it's a context filter. And so now it's going to say, hey, apply this subcategory filter first, then show me the top 10 customers right here at your customer dimension. So that's really the fix. When we go back over to this one, and you mouse over, now we'll see we're getting the top 10 customers for each subcategory across the board. So it's kind of like this really felt like a nice quick tip to do. This context filter has applications outside of just Viz and Tooltip. We've used it before, particularly in these like top 10 scenarios, or when you want to filter down to a kind of set within some other dimension above it. And sometimes you need to force Tableau to use an order of operations that to you makes a lot of sense, but to Tableau just doesn't quite jive. So that's that. I guess like as a final kind of bonus, my joke is, you know, what's better than one Viz and Tooltip? Two Viz and Tooltips. But you know, you don't want to go overboard on this stuff. What's built over here is just kind of simple, like overview crosstab, right? And it can be handy just to kind of illustrate this. I'm going to go through that because I know you don't know how to build that. But what you can actually do is you can nest, honestly, too many of these. But I've used this in some views that can help. Oh, you'll actually see view is too large to show, right? That view when we dropped in just has too much horizontal space. So it can be like a cool gut check sometimes if you just want like, you're showing a toggle, it's just kind of intuitive there when you want to expand the story. So that's kind of really all I wanted to show today. Remember, you know, you can download this, kind of work through the exercise if you want to. There you go. Yes. That's a great question. This came up at conference. They had this really cool Viz and Tooltips. Like, I wish I could present that to y'all because that was a really cool seminar. But they mentioned this, and they said the reason that happens is because Tableau is actually not regenerating. Like, it's actually not showing you. It's kind of a lie. It's not showing you a Viz in the tooltip. It's showing you. It's querying that, taking a picture of it, and serving you an image of it. Because it's not really a Viz, it's actually just an image. So what ends up happening on server, I think, is that it needs to cache them. So like, once you publish, I guess, you almost would need to like mouse through them once maybe. I don't really know, they just mentioned that on a first load, it's gonna do that because it hasn't generated the images and then cached them. But once it's cached, later on, it's as fast as you have on the desktop. But I don't know if there's been any updates on that since then. That's a great question. I don't know. I haven't run into too many problems. I know we've got this.
I see a cash file, it's all over there. So it's-
Right.
it's not in.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I'm not sure. One cool thing I did notice about that, if you are using server, you can just drop .csv or .png or .jpeg after whatever your URL is, and it'll download it straight for you, which is great, because we were taking screenshots, right, every day of our dashboards to send them in some PowerPoint, but you could actually just have like a Python script, navigate to those things and help with them. So there's some cool fixes there. I know that I didn't answer your question. I just,
That's okay, that's fine.
it's a good one. I'm not sure. My guess is that if it was a full refresh, that it would probably have to recache. But
Any other questions?
Can you zoom in on the link? I'm trying to
Yeah.
type it, it doesn't work for me.
oh no, it could be which one?
Yeah, the download. Work.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure it went somewhere before I blew it up.
That is it.
Nobody will appear. It's because you have to be in that subcategory and globally a top 10 customer. It's trying to filter on both at the same time. And we can see that, I guess, by subcat. If we bring that out here. Appliances, right? There are only three top 10 people. Appliances only has 3 of the top 10 customers that exist in the entire data set. So if we went back to this one, oh, I totally lied. If we went back to this one, right? I don't know, I'm just super lost, y'all. Okay, yeah, here we go. So when we go back to the appliances, we're only seeing those 3 people. It's because they have to be both. They have to be one of the top 10 and in subcategory because it's doing them at the same time. But when we tell it to put subcategory in the context, yeah, here we go. When we add this to context, it's going to evaluate subcategory first, then show me the top 10. Does that help? Cool. And one more question over there.
Is the context filter only applicable to like where you have it filtered, or is it now changing that measure to, or that dimension to a context like filter throughout your entire database?
It's a good question, and let me know if this doesn't answer it. It's going to operate like other filters, and that this isn't like a global filter right now. It's only a context for this one viz, or maybe the child viz that's in Tooltip. If you did want to apply it, oh yeah, okay. So for example, you can do it though as a global one. We just turned, for the fun of it, customer name into a context. You can still do all that fun stuff. You can do all, you can do all of the worksheet sharing of filters, selected only, data source, etc. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's perfect.
I know I'm a little past time, but I'd love to answer any questions y'all have. Please find me after.